I want to touch on a couple things. There's a lot of videos that have been coming out the last few days that are full of lots of misinformation, and I guess you want to call them alternative facts, not real facts. And I wanted to clear the air. So, even those of you who aren't murder rap supporters and, you have some type of issue with Greg Kading, you need to hear this out because it's going to clear the air from a lot of the false information you've been given. And a lot of this false information, these people are claiming it as fact. Okay, there's so much misinformation, it's kind of hard to know where to begin. But I'm going to start, I'll start with Keefe's Proffer session. This person is claiming that this Proffer session was basically illegal. He's claiming that Greg Kading and the LAPD approached Keefe while Keefe was in prison, and they sat him down for an interview when he did not have his attorney present. And that is very far from the truth. The truth of the matter is Greg Kading and the LAPD approached Keefe at his home because he was not in prison at the time. They approached him at his home and they basically showed him all of the evidence they had built up against him in the drug ring that they had, they got him set up with this drug ring charges and basically used that evidence saying, hey, we've got you, on these charges for drug trafficking, and, we've got some of your family members involved too. These charges could lead to 25 plus years, and for a man in his late 40s, that could basically be a life sentence. So they said, here's our card. When you're ready to talk, think about what we presented you, and, you need to come in and talk to us. Okay, so later that same afternoon, Keefe D, with his attorney present, showed up to the U.S. Attorney's Office in California. Okay, so Keefe D arrives with his attorney to speak to Greg Kading, who also has members of the FBI present. You got to remember, the FBI was providing oversight on this investigation so that people, like the people I'm referring to, could not come back later and say Greg was just covering for the LAPD, because the FBI was overseeing everything. And the FBI is not going to let any of that slide. As you know, the FBI has no problem putting sheriffs, mayors, and figureheads in prison. They've been doing it for years, and they will continue to do it. Okay, so, Greg Kading basically tells him, everything you say must be true. If we find out later that anything you said is a lie, then this deal's off the table. Okay, so Keefe D agreed, and he spoke. He gave his entire side of the story. And mind you, this deal was, if you tell us what you know about this murder, we will not press these drug charges against you and your family. So basically, Keefe D had his future and a lot of members of his family's futures on the line here. So he had everything to gain. He had everything to gain and everything to lose. Okay, so if he lied, he knew he was not only screwing himself over and ruining the rest of his life, but he was very likely going to be ruining a lot of his family members' lives. So, he told them everything that he knew about the murder. He went into great detail. He knew some details that the public was not aware of. He told them what they wanted to know. The FBI was there, the LAPD was there, his attorney was there. They were at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay, this was not while he was in prison. Okay. In addition, for this proffer session, he was not granted immunity from the Tupac murder. So people are saying, how was he able to grant him immunity for the Tupac murder when it's a Las Vegas case and he shouldn't have been there in the first place? He did not grant him immunity on the Tupac case. During a proffer session, the way it works, you are only protected during that proffer session. Okay, so if Keefe D walked out of that door and he walked down the street 10 minutes later and he told that same story to a different detective or to a different person who came and reported to the police, he would be arrested. Okay, so he was not just free to run around saying whatever he wants. He's not just free from now on. He can, write a book about it. He can do a movie. He can get away with it for the rest of his life. That's not the way it works. He is only protected against self-incrimination during that proffer session. Okay, so that's kind of why now you see the preview, the leaked preview that came out from E1, where he's basically telling the same story he told Greg Kading, and he kind of changes it around, and instead of calling himself an accomplice or that he was in the car, he's referring to himself as a witness to avoid self-incrimination. But like I said, the Proffer agreement only protects you during that meeting. While you're inside those four walls for that 2 hours, 3 hours, however long it took, you're protected during that time. And that being said, basically the police departments, the Las Vegas, LAPD, whoever, has to pretend like that tape doesn't exist. Okay, if he ever goes back on his word, if anything ever changes, if say he goes out next week and he brags about it and he gets arrested, then that Proffer session can be used against him as a confession. Okay, so that we've got that covered. Okay, the Proffer session took place at the U.S. Attorney's Office. He was not granted immunity for the Tupac murder. He was only granted immunity during that Proffer session against self-incrimination, and it only covered him during that time he was in the Proffer session. After he left that meeting, he's no longer protected. If he goes out and brags about it, if someone comes forward tomorrow, an eyewitness, and places him in the car, he can be arrested for it. And so the only, immunity, if you want to call it that he was given was for the drug charges they had built up on him. They agreed, that we're not going to file these charges and you will be, good to go from here on out. One more thing that I wanted to touch on with that is when people are saying, well, what about him recanting to RJ Bond? Why doesn't that violate his Proffer session? Or why would he recant to RJ Bond? You have to remember that this guy is a gang member, okay? People from his neighborhood were not too happy that he had gone and spoken to the LAPD and FBI and basically ratted out people from his gang. They weren't too happy that he had gone around telling the details of what happened that night. So he was, a little bit of it was probably trying to save face. Like they said, one of his close friends died, and a lot of his friends from the neighborhood were so pissed about what he did, they didn't even want to let him be a pallbearer at the funeral. So he's kind of laying low right now. But, the more obvious thing that tells you he was telling the truth to Greg Kading and not to RJ Bond is this. Are you going to believe a man when he has everything on the line, when he has everything to lose? His future, his family, the rest of his life behind bars, ruining his family's future. Are you going to believe him when what he says during that? Or are you going to believe a man when he's having a casual conversation with someone at a diner and he has absolutely nothing to lose? Okay, there were no consequences for him lying to RJ Bond. He could say whatever he wanted to RJ Bond, there were no consequences. With Greg Kading, he had real and serious consequences. So you have to use common sense, you have to think like an adult, and you have to ask yourself, if you had 25 years on the line, plus your entire family, would you tell the truth? And then a week later, if you were speaking to someone else and they asked you the same thing and you had nothing to lose, would you really care if you told them the truth or not? No, because you have nothing to lose. So people who say that he recanted and they believe that, it's complete bullshit, and it's basically someone just trying to make it fit their narrative, because it's basically not true. What else is there? Let me see here. Let me see what else somebody said. Okay, so, I want to also touch on the Reggie Wright Sr. thing, and people claiming Greg Kading is at the MGM, and that's Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr., Malcolm Patton. Those claims are absolutely ridiculous. Number one, the guy they claim to be Reggie Wright Jr. is has very dark skin. He's skinny. He looks more like Michael Irvin than he does RJ Bond. RJ Bond has a very light complexion. He's always been a little chubby. I mean, I know when he was younger he wasn't chubby, but he definitely did not look like the man in that video. So Reggie Wright Sr., that's a complete joke. It looks absolutely nothing like him. Reggie Wright Sr., now I will admit it does look a lot like Reggie Wright Sr., but you have to use common sense, okay? So the Reggie Wright Sr. during this time is bald. In 1996, Reggie Wright Sr. is completely bald on the top of his head, okay? The man in the video has a full head of hair, okay? A full head of hair. So people are now going as far to reach and say, oh, well, he must have been wearing a wig, or he was wearing a some type of spray-on product to make it look like he has hair. Okay, the guy in the video has such short hair, it's almost like he has waves. Okay, so you're not gonna find some type of bald cap that has waves to put on. Okay, he's not gonna go to those extremes just in case a conspiracy theorist comes up with some wild conspiracy 20 years later to cover his ass. So, you know, the fact that that man has hair on the top of his head completely debunks it, and the fact that not one single they can claim all day long that people have ID'd that's Reggie Wright in the video. They'll say, oh, well, we took it around to police officers and we took it around to people who knew Reggie Wright and they identified him in the video and they confirmed it. Well, how come not one single one of those people have ever gone on record to verify that that's him in the video? And the reason is because they know that it's bullshit. They know it's a conspiracy. They know it's some crackpot conspiracy theory, and they're not going to risk losing credibility. They're not going to discredit themselves and feed into some BS plot. So, you know, you can say all day long that these people have verified that that's Reggie Wright in that video, Reggie Wright Sr. in that video, but until someone goes on record, someone who knew him, who either worked with him or was a close friend of his, goes on record and says, yes, that is Reggie Wright Sr., there is nothing to talk about, because that is not proof. Saying you know someone that verified him is not proof. We need something on the record, or else it doesn't matter. Okay. Let's see what else. You know, and another thing, you know, people saying that Orlando Anderson had a airtight alibi, and that's why he was never arrested. And, you know, they basically say that he's basically a choir boy. So, you know, and this person I'm talking about, he's kind of a cherry picker. He'll watch a Tim Brennan video, and he'll take parts of the Tim Brennan video that fit his narrative and leave out the parts that don't. You know, Tim Brennan himself has said that Orlando Anderson was a pretty bad guy. He was already being investigated for a couple murders before the Tupac murder. He was also, you know, obviously we know that 2 people were killed during the incident that killed him. He was in a point-blank shootout, you know, a shootout from point-blank range over a disputed drug deal. So we know he wasn't, you know, a choir boy. But you know, the whole Corey Edwards thing, saying that Orlando Anderson was at the bar all night, is just complete bullshit. The fact of the matter is, there is no suppressed videotape that shows Orlando Anderson sitting at the bar all night. If there was a videotape, they would have been able to get it right when they got the videotape of the beatdown. There is no reason that the MGM would need to suppress a videotape to protect whoever they claim that they're protecting, Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. There's no reason they would suppress that videotape, and in fact, it's a really lazy claim because it's a claim that no one could ever prove wrong. You know, I could claim that me, that me, Reggie Wright Jr., Sharitha, David Kenner, you know, and the man on the moon were sitting at the Flamingo Hotel playing a game of poker all night long, and there's no way they could have killed Tupac, because Lil Half Dead was our card dealer, and he was there at the moment he was shot. But, you know, I don't have the video. It's being suppressed by security, so you'll have to take my word for it. It's complete bullshit, it's illogical, and it's lazy. It's a lazy claim. It's something that they can never prove or disprove. It's just a wild claim, and it's not true. The fact of the matter is, Corey Edwards is a Southside Crip. He was friends with Orlando Anderson, and the fact that he says that Orlando Anderson was at the bar all night long is a self-serving statement, and it's pretty obvious he's not going to rat out his friend. You know, of course he's not gonna, you know, tell detectives, oh, Orlando, no, you know, he actually left about an hour ago to go murder someone. No, he's gonna say, oh no, he was with us all night, we stayed at the hotel. Of course he's gonna lie, you know, so it's his friend, of course he's gonna lie for him. You know, and in addition, you know, yesterday Daz, who doesn't ever, you know, mince words, I guess you could call it, you know, he pretty much says it like it is. You know, he was asked by the 313 Live show, who I'm a fan of. I think that he puts out really good shit. You know, I don't agree with some of the theories that he believes with, but, you know, I feel like he's one of the better YouTube channels on YouTube that speak on this subject. He puts out a lot of good info, and he has a lot of good interviews with really good people. But he spoke to Daz yesterday, and Daz, he asked him about the little half-dead theory, and Daz came straight out and said, it's bullshit. He didn't kill him. And, people I know will spin that and say, well, he's just protecting little half-dead like Corey Edwards did Orlando Anderson, which, you can feel that way. But the fact of the matter is, you can see when Daz is watching these videos, he's smoking, he's changing clothes, he's having a good time. He's not really stressed. All these people that say, oh, we're pressuring him, we're putting heat on him. Daz doesn't look like he's over there sweating, biting his fingernails, afraid that the feds are about to knock his door down. He knows that these conspiracy theories are bullshit. He knows that the Tupac assassination theories are bullshit. So not only did Daz discredit it, but Napoleon did an interview with Vlad today as well, and Napoleon basically said the same thing. He said he read a Keefe interview, and he's seen murder rap, and everything matches up exactly like he remembers it happening. He said that Gaddafi was in the car with Gaddafi told him about the incident, and that whenever they said that they didn't know which car he was in, and as they were pulling up, they were peeking in to see which car he was in, that made the most sense, because he said Gaddafi, when he was in the car, said that they pulled up and looked in his car too, and it looked like they were trying to look and look for someone and try to find someone. And he said that he also prays at a mosque with one of Orlando's childhood friends, which I think we all know who that is. If you have an Instagram or something, you would know who that is. That basically has kind of confirmed it as well. So, it's no mystery. It's common sense. The fact that, a lot of us fans, myself, I know I look young, but I'm in my 30s, and I've been listening to not just Tupac, but death row music and that genre, I guess you could call it, for a good 24 years now. I've been a huge Tupac fan for 24 years. I mean, listening to him almost every day. And not that that makes you know what happened to him when he was murdered, but I'll say that from the day that he was killed until I watched Murder Rap, every single fan of Tupac had been waiting for the day when the people involved came out and told us exactly what happened, how they got away with it, and all the details. We were waiting for the day that we would finally know what happened, and basically that day finally came. And when that day came, we have the younger generation saying it's bullshit and not wanting to believe it, because the waters have been muddied so much. So I just think it's sad that the truth is right in front of us. The people involved have confessed and told us exactly what happened, and instead of taking the truth and spreading the truth, we have people who are ignorant to the truth and are spreading lies and misinformation. And that is one reason why this case will never lead to a conviction. That is one reason why this case, people can say all day long that this is a prosecutable case. It's not. It never will be. There's no way a jury of 12 people would ever be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, because of all of the wild conspiracies that people have been putting out. You could take Keefe's confession with 3 eyewitnesses, the murder weapon, and between people saying Tupac's alive, Suge killed Tupac, Lil Half Dead, Reggie Wright Jr., all these wild conspiracy theories, there's no way beyond a reasonable doubt a jury of 12 people would be convinced. And I think it's sad that people in the name of money have done that, because we finally have the answers and the truth, and at this point half the fans don't even believe the truth anymore because so many lies have been spread. So I just wanted to touch on that. And I know I get a lot of hate on here because the majority of people on here are conspiracy theorists. YouTube is full of conspiracy theorists. Half of them think Prodigy was killed by the Illuminati and the earth is flat, or whatever you want to call it. But I just wanted to touch on that. There's a lot of misinformation. Keefe D was not interviewed without an attorney from prison. He was not granted immunity from the Tupac murder. And then one last thing I wanted to say, people asking why is the LAPD even involved in this case to begin with. You have to remember, if the LAPD has a right to be involved in this case, even though he was killed in Vegas. And the reason is because gang members from California murdered him. Gang members from Compton murdered him. And whenever Keefe D confessed and he told them that the plot, the initial conspiracy, the initial plan to have Tupac and Suge killed started in California, that then makes the LAPD involved, because a felony took place in their jurisdiction. Planning to commit premeditated first-degree murder on 2 people is a felony. And when Keefe admitted that that took place in the state of California, in the county of Los Angeles, that makes the LAPD, responsible for that charge. So if they want to investigate that, conspiring to commit first-degree murder, by interrogating Keefe and whoever else they want to in Compton and around the LA area, that's their right. They're investigating a felony that took place in their jurisdiction. So people, it's not as black and white as it seems. You have to think logically. You have to think smart. And yeah, so like I said, I know I'm going to catch a lot of shit for this because there's so many of you conspiracy theorists on here, but you need to start opening your mind. I'm going to stop talking so much shit. I will say, I do have, even though I don't agree with RJ Bond and J-Mix on a lot of their theories, I do respect them. J-Mix is probably the top Tupac channel on the internet. He's got the best interviews you could ask for. And, even though I'm not a huge supporter of his theory, I still appreciate the work that him and RJ do, because they at least research. They're not spewing that there were Russian satellites over Vegas the night Tupac was killed, and secret societies are doing this and that. So I do respect them for that. They do put out good material. They do at least investigate and believe in what they're doing, and they're not just trying to get views. So anyways, go ahead, click like, click subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.